When I had an eye opening a couple of years ago. Again, as I said, I grew up orally. I have oral friends, and some of them persisted in being oral because they didn't want to disappoint their parents. They didn't want to disappoint their past teachers. And I actually rebelled against that because I couldn't continue being unhappy and miserable. And I was a poster child of that, but inside, I was miserable. I couldn't imagine life after 18. Where I remember asking myself, where do deaf people go? Where are they? I asked my teachers, where are they? What becomes of them? No deaf child should be asking that question. You should already know the answer of what a deaf future looks like. So I got involved in the deaf community. I learned ASL. I knew how the framing of oral education was, and that hit me. All of them were lies in order to meet the existing ideology. Deaf people bought those lives for the rest of their lives. And so I stayed friends with them. They're still my friends. You have to have compassion for them. They're still deaf just like me. I have many other friends who are sign language users as well. They welcomed me. I then became part of their family and part of the deaf community. So I really have the best of both worlds. I won't necessarily say the other individuals are the best because of what I've seen them go through, but I use it to my advantage to help change the system. One of them, was another female who's a graduate. She graduated with me. She passed away actually from alcoholism. She drank herself to death. At her funeral, her parents, I felt so bad for them. They had a funeral without an interpreter. And so there were deaf people in the audience, and deaf people didn't understand anything that was being said, so they couldn't be a part of her funeral. I thought that was just the saddest funeral I've ever attended. Another friend of mine who grew up deaf, she's actually one of the people who welcomed me into the deaf community. She died actually from cancer. I went to her funeral, and it was packed. It was standing room only, and it was story after story after story, hours and hours of everybody wanting to tell stories about my deaf friend. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful funeral. It was sad to lose her, of course, but it was a celebration of her and her deaf life and every person that she touched there. I know it seems sort of a morbid comparison, but you do have to face, the full lifespan of a deaf person from birth all the way to their passing.